The Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade puts the power to allow or ban abortions in the hands of state governments. Here to talk about its impact here in Washington, well, we're joined by Austin Jenkins, a public radio reporter for the Northwest News Network. Austin, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So how does the SCOTUS ruling affect us here in Washington?
Well, it really doesn't from a legal standpoint, because Washington state has codified in state law the right to abortion. And the state law is very clear about this, that pregnant people have the right to access an abortion up to the point of fetal viability, which is usually in the 24 to 25 week time frame. And then beyond that, abortion is available to protect the health or life of the mother, the potential mother. So early term abortions are legal, and later term abortions are legal when it's a matter of health and safety.
Both our governor and our attorney general have made it pretty clear that they're going to make sure that abortions are available in our state. Do you have any knowledge of what's going to be happening in the next couple of days or weeks in that section?
Yeah, so to start with, because the legislature isn't in session, the governor is able to do some things by executive order. So for instance, he's going to tell the state patrol here in Washington state, and he has command and control over the state patrol, that it may not cooperate with any other state that is seeking to track down someone who comes here to this state for an abortion and try to sort of have the long arm of the law from that other state reach into Washington and try to prosecute that person. So no cooperation on the part of the state patrol. The governor is accessing about $1 million from a fund he controls to provide some funding to low-income women who might come here and not be able to afford an abortion. So you're going to see things like that on the part of the governor. And then already Democrats are talking about, if they maintain control of both the House and the Senate in the November elections, and by the way, all House members and about half of state senators are up for election. But if they're still in control come January, they're looking at a number of laws related to patient privacy, related to expanding access to abortion in terms of providers, because they are expecting an influx of patients from other states, and any number of other measures to sort of strengthen, solidify, and ensure the protections that are in place today remain in place.
And they will remain in place, but that could change depending on who's in power in our state legislature, right? Haven't there been some attempts to roll back abortion rights and access here in Washington?
There have. This is codified in state law, but not enshrined in the state constitution. Now, the governor has called for a constitutional amendment. The California State Assembly this week passed a constitutional amendment that will now go to voters for approval to further protect and enshrine abortion rights there. But in this state right now, that doesn't look feasible. There just doesn't appear to be the votes for that. It would require a number of Republican state lawmakers to sign on, and they're showing no indication they would. So for now, this is in state law. And yeah, if Republicans swept into control and held the governorship, and if they wanted to repeal this law, they could potentially do that. And the governor is warning about that. What we have seen over the last number of years, most years in this state, is that some number of Republican lawmakers will introduce bills to restrict or limit access to abortion. So for instance, parental notification, restricting later term abortions, prohibiting someone from getting an abortion based on a Down syndrome diagnosis, things like that. So these bills get introduced every year. In my 18 years covering Olympia, when Democrats have held at least one, if not both chambers of the legislature and always had the governor's office, none of them have gotten any traction.
Right. So do you see this having an impact on voter turnout in November?
Well, Democrats are certainly going to be talking about this right up until then. They see this as an issue that can galvanize voters, and they see this as another way to paint a stark contrast between them and the Republican Party. That said, we are hearing that this could be a wave election that benefits Republicans. We know that the party in power nationally tends to lose seats in the midterm elections. We also know that local elections are very much influenced by what's happening at a national level. So I think you're going to be hearing a lot of conversation and talk about this decision from the Supreme Court and about abortion rights from Democrats all the way up to the finish line in November. Whether this will turn the tide in favor of Democrats, I just think remains to be seen.
How big of a role do you see Bob Ferguson, our Attorney General, playing in terms of legal challenges?
He's been very vocal. He says he's put together a team of about 20 people on his staff. And by the way, he runs what's considered to be the largest law firm in the state, to look at this, to try to anticipate potential legal issues that might come up. We know that he's not one to hesitate to sue when he feels like the rights or interests of Washington state residents are at stake. So he's clearly building a team and preparing. One thing he already did preemptively, even before the decision, after the draft decision was leaked, is he said to the state medical licensing boards that they should not hold it against an out-of-state provider trying to come work here if they have been penalized in that other state for their involvement in providing abortion services. Typically, if you have been in trouble with a medical board and you try to come to this state to practice, that would be, a potential problem to getting licensed here. He's saying, don't hold that against these providers.
Yeah.
In essence, Washington should be welcoming abortion providers to come work here.
Are there any actions that state lawmakers can take to defend the rights of abortion if national restrictions are imposed?
That could be tough. There is this idea, this concept, and I'm not an attorney, but federal preemption is a thing. And that essentially says when there is a conflict between federal law and state law, federal law trumps. And so, and that's true even if it's a federal law and a state constitutional matter. Oftentimes, I think, the default is going to be that what the feds say or what Congress says goes. So, would there be legal fights? Would there be pushback? Would there be efforts to try to protect abortion rights in this state at any cost? Absolutely. But if Republicans swept to power in Washington, D.C., had the presidency down the road, and a nationwide abortion ban was passed, it might be very tough for Washington state to hold on to its current abortion rights statute.
Austin Jenkins, you've got a very busy job. You've got a lot to watch. Thank you so much for joining us.
A lot to watch in the coming months, for sure.
Yeah.